What's up, everybody? I've been talking with a lot of sellers lately, and I find myself over and over repeating that it's okay to be kind to yourself. And I thought I would share this with all of you. Most of us think that being hard on ourselves is what drives success. But what if that's not true? The problem is we have so much data and so much experience of hustling, of grinding, of forcing ourselves, of coercing ourselves into doing things that we just know that that's what gets us success. The problem is that doing that also leads to burnout. And so if you want to be successful and a high performer without burning out, well, you kind of got to be nice to yourself. Self-compassion is not fluff. It's actually performance-based fuel. Let me tell you all about it. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Deibert. I'm a performance coach. I work with strategic and enterprise sellers to help them with their productivity, with their mindset. And a big part of that is processing your feelings, allowing your feelings. I've talked about that before. I'm going to talk about it even more. But today, I specifically want to talk about self-compassion. Today, I'm going to talk about why self-compassion is not just a feel-good strategy. It's actually a performance improver. I'll walk you through the science of it. I'm going to tell you my own story of how I resisted it and had no idea how to do it. And then I'll give you some simple techniques to be able to implement more self-compassion into your workday. Let's get you to a place where you don't have to beat yourself up anymore to get your work done. Doesn't that sound fun? Okay, so first let's talk about the science behind self-compassion. They've done actual scientific studies. They've studied people who in the one group, they were compassionate towards themselves. They cheered themselves on. They gave themselves the support that they needed. They gave themselves the rest that they needed. And then in the other group, they had your kind of typical person where our inner critics run wild. We're forcing ourselves. We're coercing ourselves. We're beating ourselves into submission. What they found is that the self-compassionate group had less stress, less rumination, their performance increased, and they had more motivation. Isn't that amazing? Less stress, more resilience, more motivation, and less rumination. We could all use a little of that, I think. Research shows that people who are kinder to themselves bounce back faster from mistakes. Self-compassion is not a nice to have. If you want to be a top performer, self-compassion is literally the path to getting you there. But if you're like me, you're like, how do I do self-compassion? How do I have self-compassion? What is self-compassion? What does it even look like? This doesn't feel like it's going to work at all. I'm someone who, with my neurodiverse brain, my ADHD, I just have had to coerce myself into doing things. I would wait until the last minute, and then now I've got fear motivating me because I didn't have enough dopamine to get myself to do the job in the first place. So now I've got to rely on the fear to motivate me. And I kind of just like beat myself into submission of like, my inner critic would run wild. I'd be like, what's wrong with you? You've got all these problems. How come you're not performing? So people would recommend self-compassion. They'd be like, why don't you be more compassionate towards yourself? And the thoughts going through my head when they would say that were like, sounds great. I literally have no idea what you're talking about. What does that even mean? Like I could say nicer things to myself in my head, be like, hey, you're doing a good job. Keep going. But that's not going to help. Like, have you met me? Have you met what it takes for me to get work done? And so anytime people would talk about self-compassion, I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was talking with my therapist about this, and my therapist was saying, of course you don't know what self-compassion is. It was never taught to you. And not only was it never taught to you, it was never modeled for you. You didn't see anybody having compassion for themselves. So of course you never learned this. So I did what any self-respecting adult would do, and I asked ChatGPT to teach me. I wish that it was a joke, but that's legitimately what happened. I was like, okay, I now can accept myself that I've never learned to have self-compassion. I don't even really know what it is. And I'm going to go to ChatGPT and have it teach me self-compassion. So I went to ChatGPT and I was like, imagine that you are a self-compassion expert. You're helping somebody who's never had self-compassion, who's never learned self-compassion, learn it for the first time. What even is it and how do you do it? And ChatGPT spit out this great document for me. It had like step by step, here's a bunch of different ways to be self-compassionate. Here's what it looks like. Here's how it can show up in different situations. And I'm telling you, it was like pulling fingernails. Like it was so painful to try to practice self-compassion. There were so many moments that I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. This is never going to work. I have years, decades of data that shows me that if I hustle and I grind, that's how I get results. If I'm rude to myself, that's how I get myself to finally take action. If I'm motivated by fear, that's how I do things. And I know so many of you are exactly the same. This is what we've learned. This is how we've learned to take care of ourselves. And when you have decades of data and research on yourself of this is what works, it's really hard to shift into something else. But piece by piece, moment by moment, I would just keep practicing. I printed out my instructions. I had them on a little clipboard on my desk so that I could review them all the time. And I would just think about like, okay, what would it look like to be self-compassionate right now? And every time I practiced like telling myself like, it's okay, you're doing a great job. Like you deserve a break. It's okay to rest. It's okay to recover. Every time I did it, it felt so foreign. And here's what I want you to realize. Just because something feels unfamiliar and uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. There are so many times that we're navigating change in our life and something feels so uncomfortable, mostly because we've never done it before. It's kind of like if you've ever played basketball, like maybe you're really good at doing a right-handed layup and now you're trying to figure out how to do a left-handed layup. You got to like step on different feet, use a different hand. Like everything about the motion feels so unfamiliar, but the more you practice it, the easier it gets. So just remind yourself that just because something feels uncomfortable might just be that it's new. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. So I just kept going. I kept trying my self-compassion techniques. I kept trying to practice it. And it's kind of like exercise. I mean, I'm the work like you work out queen. So of course I'm going to always tie this to exercise. It's kind of like exercise where like you work out once and you're like, do I look different? They're like, no, I look the same. And then you keep working out. And eventually you're like, oh, wow, like I have some different definition, or like I'm a lot stronger than I thought, or I can do that thing that I couldn't do before now because I've been exercising. And it's like that. It's so subtle. It's so minuscule, but just keep putting in the repetitions. And eventually you'll look back and be like, wow, I actually am very different. So I continued to use self-compassion for myself. And I got to a place where I started seeing pretty big results. I remember one day in particular, this is a ridiculous example to give, but it really proves the point. And if any of you have been here, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. I had just gotten back from vacation with my family. I took my 2 elementary school aged kids to Disneyland, and we were there for a week. We were exhausted. I know that's not the right way you say it, but just so you get the point. We were completely exhausted. And it's Monday. I'm returning to work. I had back-to-back clients all day long. I had a huge list of tasks that I needed to get done that I'd been putting off because I was out of town the week before. And I was wiped, man. I was so exhausted. We averaged like 8 miles of walking a day. I was so tired. And normally when I'm in that position, I would tell myself like, okay, you got to just get it done. You got to just force yourself. You got to hustle. You got to grind. I don't care what it looks like at the end of the day. You got to get through all your tasks. And instead, this day, I practiced having self-compassion for myself. I was like, okay, Amber, you're starting out this day not really at your best. The tank's not even close to full. The tank's at like 25%. And you've got lots of clients to take care of today and lots of clients that you want to be present for and you want to care for. And so I made a plan. It felt so foreign to me, but I made a plan. I was like, all right, I am just going to focus on being present, energized, and completely there for my clients today, every single one of them. And in between calls, I'm not going to require myself to do anything else. I have this whole list of tasks that I'm behind on that I need to get done, but I'm just going to let myself rest between calls. I'm going to let myself re-energize between calls so that I can be completely, fully present and energized for my next client. And so that's what I did. It felt so weird of like not hustling, not forcing myself, not making myself do something I wasn't capable of. In between calls, I would go sit out on my front porch and I would just relax. I'd breathe. I'd put my feet in the grass. I'd let my nervous system calm down. And then I was like re-energized, ready to go by the time I would get on my next client call. So I did the entire day like this. I had 30 minutes at the end of the day before my kids got off camp, and I was going to just like sign off and like let myself rest all day. But what happened is that as I got through every single call, as I took really good care of myself, as I met myself with compassion for where I was that day, by the end of the day, and again, it seems so weird to say it this way, but I know that you understand what I'm saying. At the end of the day, it was like Amber was saying like, hey, you took such good care of me. I could totally do those tasks. And I was like, you can? And she was like, yeah, I totally can. And I don't know how I have these conversations with myself, but they happen, which I know you're familiar with. And I cranked through every single task that I needed to get done in that last 30 minutes. I got it all done. And it was because I had taken such good care of myself. I didn't have to use any fear to motivate myself. I didn't have to stress myself out to get it done. I just got it done because I had met myself with such compassion. I literally was like, did that really happen? It felt so foreign, so weird, so unusual. It was amazing. And I truly believe that this is possible for you as well. So just like let yourself go through the uncomfortable, awkward parts and then find yourself on the other side and be like, oh, yeah, okay, this is my new normal. The thing is, if you're later in your career, you don't really have to hustle like you used to. When you're early in your career, it's actually kind of helpful to hustle. If you put in more time, if you put in more effort, you're going to learn those skills more quickly. But once you get to the later part of your career, you already have kind of the skills. You've put in the time, you've put in the effort. And so now you have the muscle memory. You have so much more data of how things work that you don't have to work as hard to get the same results. But we're so programmed of like, that's what's worked for us that it's really hard to let go of that and allow ourselves to take care of ourselves, to rest, to recover, to meet ourselves where we are, to fuel ourselves rather than motivate ourselves with fear. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what are some tactics? How do I do this? What does it even look like? Well, first of all, let me give you a technique that has been incredibly helpful for me. I read this book once that was talking about how just like you can see a baby tree inside of a grown-up tree, you can cut the tree and you can see the rings. So you can see like, oh, there's a little baby. And then like, here's the grown-up. Just like you can see the baby tree inside of an adult tree. Are they adults? Are they teenagers? I don't know. But just like you can see that, it's the same for humans. Our younger self is living inside of us as a grown-up today. And I like to think about how every time there's like a really intense emotion, there's like a part of me that shows up. So it's kind of like if you touch your hand on the stove, there's going to be a part of your brain that's like, wow, that was really painful. Don't touch that stove again. And so there might have been something that happened when you were 7. Like your teacher said that your cursive handwriting was horrible. And as soon as that happened, you felt this intense emotion that you weren't capable of handling as a 7-year-old of like, oh no, I need to never show myself again because my teacher didn't like my handwriting. Hopefully this is not a real example, but you get the idea. So now, whenever it gets close to like touching that hot stove again, quote unquote, of, oh no, I'm going to feel that same painful emotion that I felt. It's almost like that 7-year-old version of us jumps in the picture and it's like, whoa, 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 stop. Don't take action. Don't move forward. You're going to put out this thing that you worked so hard on that you thought was beautiful, and they're going to critique it and they're going to tell you it's not good. And that feeling feels horrible. So don't take action. So I like to think about every one of these intense emotions is like a younger version of myself coming to protect me. And I try to pick out like, what age is that version of me? Is this like my 14-year-old self? Is this my 16-year-old self who's really embarrassed by me? Is this my 7-year-old self? Is this like a 21-year-old version of me? And when you identify an age with a feeling, it helps you to have a lot more compassion for yourself. I don't have a lot of compassion for the current version of me because I'm like, come on, suck it up. You know better. But when I think about like, oh, this is like a 7-year-old version of me coming out, then I can look at her and I can be like, oh, you poor thing. It's so much easier to have self-compassion for younger versions of ourselves, especially if you think about the context of what a 7-year-old is. So if you're having a hard time with this, which I absolutely did to begin with, because I was like, no, she was wrong. She made all the wrong choices. She should have known better. She should have done better. But it's really interesting when you look at an actual 7-year-old, if we're going to go with this example. So if you have any nieces or nephews, or maybe you have a kid that's that age, what's really interesting is that when we look back on our own experience at that age, we think that we knew everything. We expect ourselves to have made a better choice because we expect ourselves to have known what was going on. But it's really funny. Like, I think about myself as a 16-year-old, and when I recollect my memory of a 16-year-old, I'm like, oh, no. I knew. Like I knew. I had a really good context. I knew what was right, what was wrong. I made the wrong choice. I did things incorrectly. I should have totally done them differently. And so I'll have a lot of judgment for my past self. But when I look at a 16-year-old today, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. They think they know. They actually have no idea. Like a 16-year-old is really little. They have no context. They think that they know. But now as a grown-up with my fully developed brain, I can look at a 16-year-old and be like, yeah, they actually don't know at all. Like they think they do, but they don't. So if you're having judgment towards yourself, try thinking about a person that's actually the age that you were when you had that emotion, and you'll probably have a lot more compassion for them. You can see them as a grown-up and be like, you think that you know, you don't know. I don't need to tell you that you don't know. I just need to be here and support you and love you and care about you. So what does that support look like? First of all, it's really, really, really helpful to normalize the feelings that you're having. So I'll imagine this cute little 7-year-old version of me coming up to me, and she's so upset. She's so frustrated. She's like pulling on my shirt, like, don't you take another move. You're going to ruin everything for everybody. And I just kind of welcome her in, and I just tell her, of course you feel that way. It makes perfect sense that you feel that way. Anyone in your situation would feel that way. And this is so key because so often we tell ourselves that we shouldn't feel that way, that we're wrong for feeling that way. A lot of our caretakers, because they didn't have the emotional tools that they needed, would tell us that our feelings were invalid. Not directly, but they'd be like, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. It's not okay to cry. We would lose connection with our caretakers if we had big feelings. And so we just learned it's not okay to have big feelings. Big feelings are not allowed. You're going to lose contact from the people that you need care and love from. So like big feelings are no good. So it's really, really helpful to go back and normalize these feelings that you're having. Like anybody would feel that way if they were in your situation. It makes perfect sense that you feel this way. It's okay that you feel this way. So I go and tell my little 7-year-old self, I'm like, it's okay. And guess what? I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to stay with you. I won't abandon you just because you're feeling this way. This is something that we all do. We feel big emotions. There's something in our programming that tells us big emotions aren't okay because we lose access to our caretakers if we have big emotions. So shut it all down. And so we dismiss ourselves, and we also kind of abandon ourselves. We go distract ourselves with something else. We don't let ourselves feel the feeling. We don't let ourselves be with the feeling. We tell ourselves that it's wrong that we feel that way. And so it really helps perpetuate the idea that like feelings are a problem and feelings shouldn't happen. When guess what? We're mammals. We're just mammals. Mammals have feelings. Did you know that whales get angry? Did you know that dogs feel embarrassed? Do you know that cats feel scared? Like we're mammals. We have feelings. They're built in us for a reason, and it's actually not a problem to have feelings, even though we've been socialized to believe that they are. So hopefully when you see this younger version of yourself, you can have more compassion for them, especially seeing them as a 7-year-old, not you as a 7-year-old thinking that you knew everything. And then once you see them having those big emotions, try to normalize their experience. It's okay that you feel this way. It makes perfect sense that you feel this way. Anybody would feel this way if they were in your situation. And once you've normalized the experience, just reassure them. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm going to stay here with you. You can have this feeling for as long as you need to have it. And for me, I imagine I have a circus tent in my chest. I don't know why, but circus tents are huge. Like you could hold any emotion inside of a circus tent. And so whatever this big emotion is, I'm like, hey, come in the circus tent. Hang out as long as you want. I got your favorite chair in the corner. It's a beanbag. I got some comfy blankets for you. I got some chips and guac. There's drinks. Like hang out. Stay as long as you like. So I normalize the emotion. I let myself know I'm not going to abandon myself because I'm feeling it. And then I just let the emotion hang out for as long as it needs. I tell it that this is not a problem. What this is doing is it's training your brain to not be threatened by this emotion. When your brain is threatened by this emotion, then your amygdala kicks up even more and it just cycles and it gets worse and worse and worse. But when you allow that emotion to exist, you just honor it. I'm like, it's okay. I'm feeling this big emotion. I'm going to let it hang out here. When you let it hang out in your circus tent or whatever large space you decide resides within your chest, then your brain feels de-threatened by it. And actually the emotion passes very quickly. they've done research that shows that emotions last for only about 90 seconds. I have had emotions that have definitely lasted for longer, but it's, I think because I've been repressing them for so long, they were like, oh, you're finally letting us out. We've got a few things to say. The other thing that can make emotions last a lot longer is when you resist them, when you're not allowing them, when you're shoving them down, when you're avoiding them, when you're telling yourself that it's not okay for me to feel this way. So if you fully allow them, just let them be there, let them hang out, eat some chips and guac, they last for not long at all. And once you get to the other side of this, you've allowed the emotion, you've normalized the emotion, you've had some compassion for yourself, you'll be amazed at how focused you feel, how calm you feel, how clear you feel, how you're no longer resisting or forcing or coercing yourself or operating from fear. And then it's really helpful to meet yourself where you are. This is another really big piece of self-compassion, of being like, okay, well, you don't have a lot in the tank today. You're operating at about 25% of where you could be. And sometimes we have a lot of judgment for ourselves of like, well, that was your own dang fault. You stayed up too late watching shows, or you really should have done your morning routine this morning and exercised and meditated, then you would be in a much better place. But judging ourselves doesn't help. Having self-compassion, being like, okay, well, you were an idiot. And you know what? That's okay. Maybe that's what you needed. We're going to work with what we have today. We're going to take really good care of you. And giving yourself the support that you need to make it through can be incredibly helpful. So for me, that looks like, okay, we're going to break down your tasks really small. You do not have the focus today to do big, hard, heavy tasks. Let's break them up super small. Let's focus on just the top priorities. Make sure that those get out of the way. Let's give you some rest. Let's make sure that you're well fed, well nourished. You have the breaks that you need. And then usually myself responds to myself pretty well. I don't know how to talk about this, but usually she's like, oh, you took such good care of me. I'd love to do the work that you want me to do. And I'm like, you would? Great. I didn't expect that from you, but I'm glad to hear it. It's all about working with yourself. So self-compassion literally has been scientifically studied to increase your performance. I've experienced it firsthand, and I want to just offer this to you. If you're listening to this episode and you're like, yeah, sounds great. Yeah, right. Would never work for me. I totally get that. I have absolutely been there. I've been like, no way is this going to work. I want you to test it out. I want you to just try some little tactics. Just let it steep, let it simmer in the back of your mind of like, what would it look like if I was compassionate towards myself? Try some little things, and I promise you're going to see big results. Hey, if you want even more from me, make sure you join my newsletter. You can go to mentalmastery.com/newsletter to join, and you'll get a weekly email from me with even more amazing tips to help you in your work week and to help you just feel great and crush it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.